Hello, friends, and welcome to yet another reading vlog. I am so incredibly excited for today's video because I will be finally reading A Court of Thorns and Roses by Miss Sarah J. Maas. I am so stoked that I am finally in the mood to read this series. I have previously read Crescent City and Throne of Glass, and I know that's not the way you should read them, but I did it nonetheless. I think I asked on Threads or Instagram which SJM series I should start with, and everyone, like, the responses were astonishing. Like, everyone said either Throne of Glass or ACOTAR. Do not start with Crescent City. Guess what I did? I started with Crescent City. No regrets, because low-key Crescent City is, I think, my favorite, like, guilty pleasure series. I know it's bad. I know the third book doesn't make any fucking sense, but it's so much fun. Like, it is so much fun. The action is so rapidly evolving and it's just like a whiplash. So you don't really have time to think of the things that don't necessarily make sense. You're just there for the ride and it's happening whether you like it or not. And I love that series so much. And because I want to do a reread of the whole Crescent City series sometime in the near future. I don't know if it's gonna happen this year or next year at the beginning of the year, but nonetheless, I want to reread that series because there are so many things that kind of went over my head when I first read it, because I was really intrigued as to where the story was going and what's going to happen with the characters and stuff like that, that I didn't really pay like full attention to the minute details that were mentioned. But before I do that, I want to have the full background of the ACOTAR series. The Throne of Glass series is not that important to the world of Crescent City. Like, there are some like vague connections that might potentially be there with Crescent City and Throne of Glass, but I don't think it's anything major. But with that said, finally reading ACOTAR, super stoked about it. I do know the main events that are happening in this series. Just because I didn't really care about spoilers when I watched booktube videos or when I looked at fan art on Pinterest and stuff like that. And I do know the main events that are happening throughout the series. So far, my initial thoughts with knowing what I know now, which is just like the major things that are happening, but not really the details of them. I think Nesta is my favorite of the sisters, and I'm super curious to see if my opinion is going to change while I will be actually reading the series. Also, Amren. I don't know if we're gonna meet Amren in this book. Probably not. I think she's making an appearance starting with the second book, which is Akomath, but I might be wrong on that one. Amren is a very mysterious character from the Night Court, and I really do want to know more about her story and who she is in the context of the world of ACOTAR. Also, because this kind of lore of ACOTAR influences the events of Crescent City in the later books, I really do want to learn more about the Dread Trove and how those objects came to be. Like, I obviously know about the cauldron and the mask, and I think there was also like a harp or a crown or something along those lines. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, I'm very excited to learn more about the magic system and how it works. Before we start, and before I say more about this series, just know that this reading vlog and the upcoming reading vlogs with me reading the rest of the series are going to contain spoilers. Like, nothing's off the table for the world of ACOTAR and potentially Crescent City. But if I say something spoilery about Crescent City, I will be warning you beforehand. But for ACOTAR, everything's fair game, so consider yourselves warned. With that said, I will go read now and I will update you when I have something to say about this book. So see you in a bit. You guys, I just passed the halfway point of A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I wanted to give you an update thus far because I believe that in the next chapters we are going to meet someone else, and that's kind of like going to derail the story, let's say. So I think it's a good point to just stop and reflect a bit as to what's happening in this book. So currently I am on chapter 25, page 220, and this book has a total of 415 pages. So just past a bit the midway point. But thus far, if you don't know what this book is about, so we are following Feyre, who is taking care of her family. Her mom died when she was really young, and on her dying bed, her mom made Feyre promise her that she's going to take care of her two sisters, Elaine and Nesta, and also take care of their father. So now Feyre is 19 and she's trying to provide for her family as best as she can. Her sisters don't really do that much. Elaine is very passionate about flowers and plants, and she has a garden that she's taking care of. And then Nesta doesn't really have anything going on for her. At the beginning of the book, she's just like chopping wood at some point, and she's very mean to Feyre, which I mean, she kind of has a point. Now, Feyre, in trying to provide for her family, she picked up hunting. Before shooting an arrow and killing this wolf, she kind of has this thought of, oh my god, like this wolf is enormous. It might be a fairy. Like, it might be a fae that's just transformed into a wolf, right? She kills the wolf. She goes to the market with her two sisters, trying to sell its fur, I believe. She gains a lot of money for it because the merchant is overpaying, and they go back home. The next day, there's like a growl at their door, and there's this massive creature that pretty much like is barging into their house and asks who killed the wolf. In that moment, obviously everyone's terrified, and Feyre confesses that she was the one killing the wolf. We learn that the creature that's in their house is a fae, and this fae pretty much is telling Feyre that because of the treaty between the fae and the humans, she will have to go live in the fairy world because she killed a fae, right? She's going there with this unnamed creature that we don't know anything about really, and Feyre is terrified because she thinks that she's going to be killed in the fairy realm, which is like a very logical deduction based on everything that the humans know about the Fae. We will later learn that what the humans know is not really true about the fairies. Tamlin or Lucian, I don't know exactly who's telling her, but they're like, oh no, girl, like, we can't lie. Like, that's not what's happening. Like, everything you know about fairies is probably wrong. She also believed that iron is repelling fairies. That's also not true. Everything that's impacting them thus far that we know of is ashes. So anyway, she goes to the fairy world. She learns that she's not really captive there. Like, she can do whatever she wants. And at the beginning, she really tries to find a way to escape. Lucian, who's Tamlin's friend, Tamlin is the fairy that got her to Pretty in the fairy world. And we also have Alice, who's helping Feyre. She's kind of like a maid for Feyre in a way. And I wasn't really aware of Alice previously to reading this book, so she's kind of like a new character for me. Lucian is telling Feyre that this creature, the Surreal, exists, and this type of creature will pretty much answer everything that they are asked if you manage to capture them. Feyre does that. She catches the Surreal, and she, like, the first question that she asks, how can I escape from this world? How can I escape from fairy? And the Surreal is very blunt to Feyre and is telling her that basically there's no way to escape if she wants to keep herself and her family alive. So she's very disappointed in that. But she also learns that Tamlin is the High Lord of the Spring Court, and that's why he's so powerful. He can transform in this like huge beast form, and she also saw that he is more powerful than Lucian, at least. She's also attacked by other creatures like the Bog, something like that. The Puka, the Naga, which are like other type of fairies that are like shadows, dark shadows, something like that. I don't know. Obviously, she manages to escape with the help of Lucian and Tamlin. Feyre and Lucian have this very heartwarming moment of Lucian pretty much warming up to her because he didn't really like her at the beginning. Well, that's kind of understandable because she killed Andres, that wolf that she killed at the beginning of the book. It was Tamlin's and Lucian's friend, so it's understandable why Lucian doesn't really like her at the beginning of the story. Something that SJM likes to do with pretty much all of her protagonists, I know this is true for Crescent City. Uh, Now that I think about it, I don't really picture what that element might be for Throne of Glass, but something that SJM loves doing is giving her protagonists like random hobbies, random passions. For Bryce in Crescent City, it was dancing, and for Feyre in this series is painting. She's really keen on painting, and there's this scene of her asking Tamlin to provide her with painting supplies. We also learned that Feyre doesn't really know how to write. She's trying to write to her family letters, but unfortunately, she doesn't know how to do that. And Tamlin is offering to help her, but she doesn't really want to accept his help because she has the feeling that he's belittling her for being, not educated enough to be able to write by herself to her family. We also learned that Tamlin is actually taking care of Feyre's family. Like, he was not just going to remove her from their lives and that's it, because he knew that she was the one providing for them. So he kind of altered their memories of Feyre, and now they think that she went to live with this like estranged aunt or something like that. Something horrifying that was mentioned. Like, out of everything that happened, this is what is sticking out to me the most in the story so far, and it's so stupid. There's this sentence that Feyre says that like made me I think I captured it in one of the moments when I was reading on camera, but she says at some point, my bowels turned watery, or something along those lines. It is so, like, I have trouble picturing that, but I also think she has ideas. So, Sarah, I don't know what's up with that. I don't know why that's relevant to the story at all, but something worth mentioning. I think it's going to be said a lot more in the other books, but yeah, that was not great. That was not great. Last thing I want to mention for this update. So we learned that Feyre, because she's mortal, well, mortal, right? She has this kind of veil and she can't really perceive the fairy world in its entirety. So Tamlin is offering to lift this veil from her perception or vision or whatever it is in exchange for a kiss. And because he didn't mention where the kiss should be, Feyre is just like kissing his hand and then he's doing the whole thing. And she's able to see the fairy world in its entirety, and she's horrified because until that point in time, she wasn't really able to see anyone else other than like Tamlin and Lucian and Alice. And now she sees all of these other fairies that are kind of lurking around, and she's just horrified at the thought that she tried to escape and she thought she's sneaking around, but in reality, everyone could see her. So, yeah, now she's feeling pretty dumb at her attempts to escape the Spring Court. There's also a blight that's taking over Prythian, and we are led to believe that that's affecting the fairies' powers. I think we will learn more about that. I don't really know what's up with that. It's just mentioned from time to time, and I think Feyre will have to do something to lift that blight off of Prythian or something like that, based on how the story is told so far. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that happened in the first half of the book. I am fairly almost certain that in the next chapters we will finally meet Rhysand. I'm very excited about that. And yeah, I'm going to continue reading this book and I will update you either when I finish it or when something major happens. So, see you then. guess who finally finished ACOTAR? It is the next day. Yesterday evening, I finished this book, and I spent a lot of time just like taking notes and recapping everything that happened in the second part of the book. Because for some reason, like Sarah J. Maas loves an info dump, and the second part of the book, info dump, info dump, info dump. Like it was kind of negating the things that we were told in the first part of the book. It makes somewhat sense in the context of the plot and of this book, but I just thought it's kind of like a weird choice. But nonetheless, I had a lot of fun with the second part of this book. The villain of the story is such a funny character, but funny like a cringe way, not funny haha, right? Like she's pretty much a textbook villain that doesn't really have, I guess she has a motivation, but it's just so, you know. Let's do a recap. I wanted to say a short recap, but it's not going to be short at all. So buckle up. I think the last time when I updated you, I stopped just before Risan made like an official appearance in the Spring Court. Well, he is here and he stumbles upon Lucian and Tamlin and also Feyre. They were eating and he just barges into the room. Tamlin is freaking out and he's trying to hide Feyre from Risan, and he's doing his best to try to hide her, but Risan, being the almighty shadow daddy that he is, I guess, he was able to find Feyre and he's asking her what's her name. And Feyre, having a moment of brilliance, let's say, doesn't happen very often in this book, but she had a moment where she felt really smart and she's like, oh, I shouldn't be disclosing my name to this guy. So she is just giving him the name of a random girl from her town, and that's kind of that. Tamlin is literally begging Rhysand on his knees to not tell Amaranta about Feyre. Amaranta, we don't really know who she is. She's just this lady that was mentioned briefly, and that's kind of it. Like, we don't really understand why she is relevant, but she is relevant to the story later in the book. After Rhysand goes, he is kind of amused of the fact that Tamlin actually begged him to not tell Amaranta about Feyre, but he didn't make any promises to Tamlin, so he just goes. Tamlin is freaking out and he wants Feyre to go back to her family in the mortal realm and not return to Fairy ever again, because he is just convinced that Amaranta is going to come after Feyre. Again, we don't know why just yet. Feyre is kind of reluctant to go back home, but she doesn't really have a choice. And before she goes, obviously she had to have sex with Tamlin. And I just kind of skimmed through that scene because I didn't really care. But what was really funny, after they did what they did, Tamlin was like, Feyre, I love you. And Feyre just like stood there and didn't say anything. Tamlin would have loved Say Don't Go by Taylor Swift. Why'd you have to lead me on? Why'd you have to twist the knife? Walk away and leave me bleeding? That's going to become relevant later, but also I said I love you, you said nothing back. Feyre goes back to her family in the mortal realm and she discovers that they're actually pretty rich now, because Tamlin didn't exaggerate when he said that he's going to provide for her family everything that they need. They are living now in this big mansion. Elaine finally has like a bigger garden that she can care for, and Nesta, well, she's being Nesta. And we very soon learned that Nesta was not affected at all by Tamlin's glamour. If you remember, he kind of put a spell on Feyre's family so that they think that she's went to live with her like estranged aunt or something like that. Nesta knew the whole time that she was kidnapped by this fairy creature, right? And Elaine tells Feyre that Nesta actually tried to come after her. She wasn't able to open that wall that's dividing the mortal realm from the fairy one. Feyre and Nesta really bond over this thing because Feyre actually realizes that Nesta cares for her. That's why she went after her. And also Nesta is telling Feyre that she's now kind of like the protector of the family, something that Feyre used to do in the past. She's really taking her role as the eldest sister, I guess. The next day, while they are having lunch or like breakfast, I don't know, with the entirety of their family, so Elaine and their father are also there, their father tells them that this family from the town was just attacked and now their house is ashes. Like there was this big fire, everyone died in this fire, and there are no remains of these people. When Feyre learns who this family actually is, it is the family of the girl whose name she gave Rhysand. So Rhysand told Amarantha about her. Well, not about Feyre, but about this random girl in their town. And now she's gone. So Feyre is freaking out. She's convinced that something happened to Tamlin, and she's disclosing everything to Elaine and their father. They are helping her, and actually Nesta is telling Feyre that she just has to go, like she has to do what she wants to do. She doesn't have to take care of them anymore because they can pretty much get by on their own. So Feyre goes back to the fairy realm. This happens very quickly. Apparently it's like a longer journey, but it happens very quickly in the book. She goes there and we don't have anyone there other than Alice. Alice finally gives us the info dump of the info dumps. So I'm just gonna read from my notes because it's a lot. So apparently Amarantha is the High Queen of Prythian. Prythian is the overarching fairy realm. Also, while talking about the fairy realm, I have to show you the map. I don't know if I mentioned this previously, but the map, if you look at it, what does this look like? It is the map of the UK and Ireland, and apparently in this world of Prythian and Hybern and the fairies and whatever, Hybern, which is right here, are the bad guys. So do it out what you will. Amarantha is High Queen of Prythian, and she was involved in the war with the mortals 100 years ago. She had a sister, Clytia, and Clytia was the lover of Durian, I think it's his name. Yes, Durian. Durian was a mortal warrior. So Durian was using Clytia, Amarantha's sister, for intel in the war to learn about Amarantha's plans. After he was done with Clytia, he chopped her into pieces and delivered the pieces of Clytia's body to Amarantha. So ever since then, Amarantha is pissed at the mortals. And honestly, like I get why. She infiltrated in the high courts of Prythian, she meaning Amarantha. She pretty much gained their trust. Then she organized a ball. She poisoned all of the high lords and their courts, and she pretty much stole their powers. She's living under the mountain, which is going to become relevant later in the story, but we also now learn from Alice that the Spring Court was pretty much the last one standing. Lucian went to Amarantha to pretty much mend the relationship between her and Tamlin. Amarantha didn't want to hear anything about that, and Lucian insulted her. I forget exactly what he said, but Amarantha was like mad and angry with Lucian. She removed one of his eyeballs with her own hands. So that's why Lucian has at the beginning of the story that like steel metal eye whatever and like a major scar on his face. It's because Amarantha did that to him. Now after that, Amarantha, being the mastermind that she is, she organized a masquerade ball in honor of Tamlin so that they could kind of mend their relationship or whatever. And in honor of Tamlin, because he has shapeshifting abilities, she mandated everyone at the ball to wear masks. Well, she asked Tamlin then to be her consort pretty much and for the both of them to rule Prythian together. Tamlin was pretty insulted about this and he said that he doesn't really want to do that and he would much rather marry a mortal human girl than touching Amarantha ever. Amarantha obviously enraged, cursed everyone. That's why they can't really take their masks off of their faces. And also, there's another part of the curse. Apparently, the only way to break it is for Tamlin to find a human girl that is willing to marry him. And he has a deadline of what was the exact wording? 7 times 7 years, which is 49 years, which is where we are right now in the present day in the story. But there's a catch though. This human girl is not any like normal human girl. It's a human girl with ice in her heart that is willing to kill a fairy, but not any fairy, a fairy part of Tamlin's court. So Tamlin used to send his people in the woods, in the mortal forest, so that he can make this whole curse thing be broken. He wasn't successful until Feyre, so that's why he brought Feyre to the fairy realm, not because of the treaty with the mortals, but because he wanted the curse to be broken, basically, on the Spring Court. Right after she pretty much went back to her family in the human town, the 49 years timeline expired. Amaranta came and pretty much kidnapped everyone from the Spring Court, and they are now under the mountain. Thank you, Alice, for being the only one who's explaining things to us thus far in the story. Moving along, part of Amaranta's curse was also that the fairies were not allowed to tell this human girl anything about the curse, so that's why no one is really disclosing anything to Feyre in the first part of the book, and that's why they're all secretive and stuff like that. Not because they want her not to run away, but because they literally can't because of the curse. Alice also tells Feyre that there's like another part of the curse that she can't disclose yet, but she advises Feyre to listen very carefully to everything that's happening in the fairy world. Feyre's like, yeah, whatever you say. How can I find Tamlin? Like, where is Amaranta? Alice is showing her the path towards where Amaranta and everyone is, really, because she's keeping everyone hostage. Tamlin, the Spring Court, but also the other High Lords of the other courts from Prythian. And they are under the mountain. So Feyre goes there. Now, this is when the story becomes so stupid. Yes, right now the story becomes stupid, or stupider than it already was. So Feyre finds Amaranta pretty easily, and guess who's also under the mountain besides all the fairies? The human girl from Feyre's town. She's nailed to the ceiling of this palace room where Amaranta is, whatever. So Feyre is feeling very guilty that she did that to this girl. And Amaranta, I guess, is pretty amused with Feyre. She doesn't know her name yet. She doesn't really know Feyre's name. And Amaranta is willing to negotiate, I guess, with Feyre. And Amaranta's saying that if she meaning Feyre, can complete 3 tasks, she will free Tamlin and they can be happy together or whatever. Feyre is like, yeah, how about you do that and also you free everyone from this curse? Amaranta's very amused with the audacity of Feyre, and she's like, sure girl, whatever you say. And because I'm feeling generous, I will also give you a riddle, and if you answer correctly to this riddle, I will break the curse immediately. Pay very close attention to the wording, because Amaranta didn't say that if Feyre is going to complete those 3 tasks, she's going to break the curse immediately. She just said that she is going to break the curse. We don't know when. But the only immediately that was spoken was in relation to the riddle, or the answer to the riddle. Feyre accepts, and she's just brought to a prison cell. I will read you the riddle because I was so mad when I read this. Okay, here we go. So, Amaranta's riddle reads, there are those who seek me a lifetime but never we meet, and those I kiss but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. The answer is obviously love, but moving on to the first trial. Feyre is pretty stressed about this, and it's understandable because she's pretty much a prisoner in this under the mountain location, whatever. And she's really trying to solve the riddle, but she can't think of anything. So the first trial is for Feyre to hunt this ginormous worm in some sort of labyrinth maze kind of a thing, and she also has an audience. She manages to complete the first trial with the help of Lucian, who's screaming at her where the worm is so that she doesn't die, whatever. It's a whole thing. She covers herself in mud so that this worm is not able to track her by smell, because the worm doesn't have eyes, so it cannot see. It can only track her by smell. Anyway, it's a whole thing. She's completing this first task. Amaranta is becoming slowly very pissed with Feyre throughout these trials. But in completing this first trial, Feyre breaks her arm, and also she has like a pretty big wound on her arm that slowly starts to become infected because she's still like covered in mud a while after the events of the first trial. So Rhysand very conveniently is offering her a bargain. He can heal her so she will not die, but if she is successful with the other two trials and they will free themselves from Amaranta, she has to spend a week with him each month in the Night Court. And in order to seal this deal, Rhysand is giving her like a magical tattoo on her arm, whatever. She didn't know about that part. The second trial is some riddle practice because Amaranta is amused, I guess, that Feyre didn't solve the riddle just yet. Feyre and Lucian are brought into a room, and there are spikes coming down from the ceiling towards them. And she also has a riddle, another riddle written on the wall with three levers that are corresponding to an answer. So all she has to do is to answer correctly to this riddle. If you remember, Feyre doesn't know how to read and write. This scene really reminded me of that really stupid meme of Devi from Arthur, where she's like, this sign can't stop me because I can't read. It was really funny. Anyway, Feyre is desperate. Lucian is screaming at her, just like pick any lever and just like do something because we will die either way. Feyre thinks that the correct answer is with lever number 2. But when she tries to pull the second lever, she gets this searing pain through her arm. Is the same arm where she has the tattoo from Rhysand. She tries to pull the first lever, again, same searing pain through her arm. She tries to pull the third lever, no pain. So she's pretty much convinced that Rhysand is helping her. She pulls the third lever and correct answer, they escape. Second trial complete. The third trial, oh my god. The third trial is for Feyre to stab 3 innocent fairies through the heart. The first 2 fairies are unknown to Feyre, so she has some remorse, but she's doing it quickly because she wants to get it over with. But surprise, surprise, the third fairy that she has to stab through the heart is none other than Tamlin. Yeah, that's right. And she obviously doesn't want to kill Tamlin, so she's really thinking and she's playing back everything that happened thus far to her. She remembers that Lucian and this other fairy guy referred to Tamlin as having a heart of stone, and she's like, well, what if he actually has like an actual heart made of stone? Because Amaranta would not let me kill Tamlin because she needs Tamlin for her to complete her powers, I guess, or whatever. And she's doing it. She's stabbing Tamlin through the heart, and when the dagger gets close to his heart, it just stops because apparently his heart is really made out of stone. Don't even get me started. Anyway, so Feyre completes the third trial. The curse is broken. Yay, hooray. But Amaranta's like, no, no, no. I didn't say when I will break the curse. So I can do it 1,000 years from now. We didn't have an agreement as to when will I break the curse. It was only that I will break the curse eventually, right? If Farah wants to break the curse immediately, she has to answer correctly to the riddle. Amaranta is still pissed at Farah for completing all three tasks, so she just like uses her telekinesis, whatever, and she lifts Farah through the air and she's just like moving her across the room. Farah is on the verge of dying, and I guess that adrenaline is really making her brain work finally, and she realizes that the answer to the riddle is love. So the curse is finally broken. When Tamlin sees what's happening, he lunges through the room and bites off Amaranta's head. So that was fun. But also, right in the next instant, he is going to Farah because he just knows that she's not well and she's pretty much dead at this point. But she sees everything that's happening in the room through the point of view of Rhysand. There's like this weird scene with everyone, like all of the High Lords from that room are gathering in a circle around Farah's body, and they put some like magical sparkle shit on her, and they're saying something along the lines that we are granting you a huge honor and whatever. And surprise, surprise, she comes back to life and she is now High Fae. Who could have seen that coming? Anyway, yeah, so this is pretty much the ending of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I am excited to see where the story goes in ACOTAR is the upcoming one. Yeah, A Court of Mist and Fury. Because I don't really remember, like, I know she goes to the Night Court, but I don't really remember how she discovers that Rhysand is who he is. But yeah, very excited to potentially finish editing this video today and then going straight into A Court of Mist and Fury. I will obviously have another reading vlog for that. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you already read this series or not. Are you obsessed with it as everyone else seems to be, or are you just like, whatever, like, it was fine. This first book, it was it was weird. I understand that the other books are much better in terms of like pacing and plot devices and stuff like that. This was just fine. Like, it was not horrible, but certain things I was like, oh god, like, not again. The bowels that are turning watery, Miss Maas, what are we doing here? I'm convinced that those will continue to exist in the entirety of the series, moving on with the other books. But I don't think those were necessary. We could have found another way to describe how Farah is feeling other than her insides and her bowels turning watery. Anyway, these are my final thoughts on A Court of Thorns and Roses. Thank you all for joining me in this massive journey, and I will see you soon with a new video or a new reading vlog. So see you in a bit. Bye everyone.